In 1844, a man sent a message 40 miles in under a second. No internet, no radio, no electricity grid, just three parts that you probably have somewhere in your house right now. And the thing nobody tells you is that the secret behind how it worked wasn't genius. It was actually a mistake. A beautiful, accidental mistake that changed how the entire world communicates. The telegraph is one of those inventions that everyone has heard of, but almost nobody actually understands. People picture a complicated Victorian machine, rows of dials, trained operators in tailored suits, huge rooms full of wire. But the real story is the opposite. The real story is about simplicity so extreme that when engineers figured out how it worked, some of them refused to believe it for years. And at the center of this story, there are three people who don't get the credit they deserve, and one man who got almost all of it despite doing less than the others. We're going to cover all of it, the three parts, the accident, the man who was erased from history, and the moment the entire world shrank in a single afternoon. So let's start with something that will probably surprise you. If you wanted to build a working telegraph right now, you would need three things: a battery, a switch, and an electromagnet. That's it. No moving parts, no complex mechanisms, no precision engineering, just a battery to push electricity through a wire, a switch to turn it on and off, and an electromagnet at the other end that clicks when current reaches it. Here's how it works in the simplest possible way. You close the switch, electricity travels down the wire, the electromagnet pulls a small metal strip toward it. It makes a click. You open the switch, the magnet releases, the strip snaps back, another click. Short click, long click, short, long. That's Morse code. That's the whole system. And here's what makes this almost unbelievable. That wire could be 1,000 miles long, and it didn't matter. You close the switch in New York, and the electromagnet clicks in San Francisco in the same instant. People in 1844 didn't have a reference point for that. There was nothing in human experience that prepared them for instantaneous communication at a distance. The fastest thing in the world before the telegraph was a horse. And even then, a message from New York to San Francisco took weeks. So when the telegraph started working, it didn't just feel like a new technology, it felt like magic. But it wasn't magic. It was three parts and a very long wire. Now here's the first question you should be asking. If it's that simple, why did it take so long to figure out? Because there was a problem so fundamental that it almost killed the whole project before it started. And the solution came from the most unexpected place imaginable. Here's the problem. If electricity travels down one wire to the electromagnet, it needs to come back. That's how electricity works. It flows in a loop. You need two wires, one to send the signal, one to return it. Two wires over hundreds of miles is an enormous amount of copper, and copper is expensive. Hugely expensive, especially in the 1830s and 1840s, when the industrial world was just starting to scale up. So the early telegraph lines were being built with two wires, which doubled the cost of everything, and the project was already struggling financially. Then in 1838, a German physicist named August von Steinheil made a discovery that nobody was looking for. He was building a telegraph line along a railway in Bavaria, and during testing he noticed something strange. When both ends of the wire were connected to metal plates buried in the ground, the signal still worked, with one wire. The ground itself, the actual Earth, was carrying the return current. The planet was completing the circuit. Steinheil ran experiments. He buried plates at both ends of a single wire, checked the results again and again, and the signal wasn't just present, it was actually stronger with one wire and Earth return than it had been with two wires. He published his findings, and crucially, he declined to patent the idea. He said he wanted it to be freely available as a public service. This changed everything. Within years, every telegraph line in the world switched to single-wire Earth return systems, and the cost of building a line dropped by close to half. But here's the part that almost nobody talks about. The early telegraph engineers didn't fully understand why it worked. They just knew it worked, and they used it. And then Steinheil started thinking about what it implied. If electrical current spreads outward through the earth in all directions, not just in a straight line between two plates, then maybe you didn't need a wire at all. Maybe you could send signals without any physical connection between sender and receiver. He was describing wireless telegraphy. In 1838, nearly 60 years before Marconi made it a reality. He even tested it and managed to transmit a signal 15 meters through the air using electromagnetic induction. Not far enough to be useful, but the idea was there, fully formed, in 1838. So Steinheil made the discovery that made the telegraph affordable, gave it away for free, and glimpsed the concept of wireless communication half a century before the world was ready for it. And history barely remembers his name. But there's someone else history forgot who deserves even more attention, because without him, you wouldn't recognize Morse code as Morse code at all. You know Samuel Morse. Everyone knows Samuel Morse. He's in the history books as the inventor of the telegraph and the inventor of Morse code. And that second part is probably wrong. Let me tell you about Alfred Vail. In 1837, Vail was a student at New York University studying theology. Not engineering, not physics, theology. He saw Morse demonstrate an early version of his telegraph and was so fascinated that he approached Morse with a deal. Vail would fund the development, build all the hardware, secure the patents, and work on improving the system in exchange for a share of future profits. Morse agreed. Now here's where history gets complicated. Morse's original idea for a code was not dots and dashes. It was a numerical system where each word would be assigned a number. The operator would send the number, and the receiver would look up the number in a code book to find the word. It was slow, complicated, and impractical. Alfred Vail replaced it with something completely different. He went to the offices of a local newspaper and asked to see which letters were used most often. The printers knew because they kept different quantities of each letter in their type cases. The most common letters had the most copies. Vail used this data to design a code where the most common letters got the shortest signals. E, the most common letter in English, got a single dot. T got a single dash. The less common letters got longer, more complex combinations. That frequency-optimized dot and dash system was designed by Alfred Vail. But the patent was in Morse's name. Morse was the public face of the project. Morse lobbied Congress, and when the first official message was sent in 1844, what hath God wrought? It was Morse who sent it, and Morse whose name went down in history. Alfred Vail was on the other end of the line in Baltimore, receiving, unrecognized. He spent the rest of his working life in Morse's shadow, and his last position as superintendent of a telegraph company paid him $900 a year. For a man who had co-invented the device that was reshaping the world. In 1848, he wrote to Morse and told him he was leaving the telegraph industry for more profitable business. He died 11 years later, largely forgotten. And every time someone sends SOS in Morse, 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots, they're using the frequency-optimized system that Vail built by counting letters in a newspaper. He just never got his name on it. So we have Steinheil's Earth return discovery, Vail's code, and Morse's name on all of it. But there's still one more layer to this story. Because once those lines started spreading, the world changed in ways that nobody predicted, including one change that shapes how you communicate every single day. Before the telegraph, diplomats wrote long letters. They had to. A message from Washington to London took weeks by ship, so the length of the letter barely mattered. You were paying for the ship, not the words. The telegraph changed that. Suddenly you were paying by the word, and the rates for transatlantic messages were enormous in the early days. A single 20-word telegram in the 1860s could cost the equivalent of hundreds of dollars today. So diplomats learned to cut. Bureaucrats learned to cut. Business people learned to cut. They stripped out pleasantries, removed context. got to the point in the first sentence because the second sentence cost real money. The telegraph is the direct ancestor of modern business communication style. The short email, the brief memo, the subject line that contains the full message. That pressure to say things concisely didn't come from style guides or communication training. It came from economics. The telegraph made every unnecessary word expensive. And here's a detail that gets almost no attention. The first message ever sent over the completed transatlantic cable wasn't a declaration of friendship between nations or a historic quote designed for posterity. It was stock prices. The first message sent across the Atlantic Ocean was about Wall Street. Pure, immediate, commercial pragmatism. The cable wasn't finished before someone in finance figured out how to make money from it. If you're finding this interesting, stick around, because the next part is where things get genuinely strange. And if you want to see where this technology went next, I'll link that video at the end. It involves an even weirder discovery that almost nobody knows about. Now let's talk about what was happening on the other side of the funding table, because the political story behind the telegraph is almost as strange as the technical one. When Morse demonstrated the telegraph to Congress in 1842, the reaction was not excitement or wonder or even polite interest. One senator from Indiana watched the demonstration carefully and then told colleagues he had been watching Morse's face closely, specifically to check if the man was mentally unwell. Other senators said they had no confidence in the technology at all. Congress was being shown a machine that could transmit information instantly across any distance, and their first thought was that the inventor might be crazy. It took Morse years to get funding. His bill passed in the House in 1843 by 89 votes to 83, with 70 members not voting at all. One senator opposed the funding by worrying, and this is what he actually said, that the telegraph might be made very mischievous and secret information after communicated to the prejudice of merchants. He was worried the telegraph would give merchants an unfair advantage in business. He was not wrong. That's exactly what happened. People very quickly realized that knowing something before the competition knew it was worth enormous amounts of money, and the telegraph became the foundation of modern financial markets. But even after the telegraph was clearly working and clearly changing the world, some of the basic engineering behind it remained poorly understood. Remember the Earth return system? Telegraph operators knew it worked. They used it every day. But in dry conditions, the current would weaken and the signal would fade. The solution was completely primitive. Operators were instructed to pour water on the metal plates buried in the earth at each station. Literally pour water on the ground to make the planet conduct electricity better. This was not an emergency measure. This was standard operating procedure for early telegraph stations in dry climates. Water the earth, keep the signal strong. That's where the technology actually lived, not in the clean version of history, but in someone at a remote station in the desert carrying a bucket. And then in October 1861, Western Union completed the first transcontinental telegraph line across the United States, connecting the East Coast to the West Coast for the first time. The Pony Express, the famous relay mail system where riders on horseback crossed the continent in 10 days, had been operating for 18 months at that point and was considered a marvel of logistics and endurance. The Pony Express shut down 2 days after the telegraph line was completed. Not 2 weeks, 2 days. There was no ceremony, no official announcement beyond a brief business notice. The company simply acknowledged that it could no longer compete and stopped. Within 10 years of that moment, telegraph lines stretched across most of the industrialized world. By 1870, there was an overland connection from London to Calcutta. By 1866, a cable connected Europe to America under the Atlantic Ocean. A system that required 3 parts, a battery, a switch, and an electromagnet, had physically linked continents. And the engineers building those lines were solving problems in real time without a rule book, because the rule book didn't exist yet. When electric trams started running in cities in the 1880s and 1890s, The current from the tram systems disrupted the ground circuits that telegraph lines depended on. Nobody had planned for that. Nobody could have. They figured it out as they went. That's the part of telegraph history that almost never gets told. Not the famous first message, not the famous inventor's name, but the years of trial and error by engineers and operators working in confusion and improvisation, solving problems that had no precedent. So here's the answer to the question this video started with. The secret to building a telegraph with almost nothing. 3 parts: battery, switch, electromagnet. And one more ingredient that the inventors didn't plan for, didn't fully understand, and almost didn't use: the Earth itself. The planet you're standing on is a conductor, an enormous, imperfect, but functional conductor that completes electrical circuits across any distance. Once Steinheil figured that out, the cost of building telegraph lines dropped by half. Once the cost dropped, lines spread everywhere. Once lines spread everywhere, the world connected. Not through genius, not through a single great inventor's moment of inspiration, but through accident. Through a German physicist noticing something strange on a railway line in Bavaria. Through an engineer willing to say, "I don't understand why this works, but it works." The whole revolution that followed, the instantaneous communication, the transcontinental lines, the death of the Pony Express, the rewiring of diplomacy and finance in warfare, started with a man pouring water on a metal plate buried in the ground to keep a signal alive. That's how technology actually works. Not in clean, heroic moments, in confusion and improvisation, with credit going to the wrong people, and someone forgotten in Baltimore receiving the most famous message in telegraph history while the man who sent it took a bow. 3 things to take from this. The simplest technologies are often the most profound. A battery, a switch, and an electromagnet connected the world. The Earth itself is part of the circuit, and that wasn't designed, it was discovered by accident. And the man who discovered it gave it away for free because he thought it should belong to everyone. And history gives names to inventors, not to the full, complicated, collaborative reality of how things actually get built. Morse got the name. Vail did much of the work. Steinheil made the key discovery. Thousands of laborers stretched wire across mountains and deserts and ocean floors. All of them were part of this. The telegraph wasn't built by a genius. It was built by a system, a messy, underfunded, imperfectly understood system that somehow, against considerable odds, worked. If you want to see what happened when the next generation of engineers tried to push this technology further and made an even stranger discovery in the process, that video is right here. And if this kind of history is what you're into, subscribing means you won't miss the next one. Because the story of where the telegraph led is, if anything, even weirder than where it started.